This is J. Krishnamurti's first public talk in Saanen, 1961.
I think from the very beginning we should be very clear where we meet. To me, these meetings are very serious. I'm using that word specially with a certain significance. For most of us, seriousness implies a certain way of thought, a certain conduct of life, a pattern of existence to be followed. And gradually, the pattern, the conduct, the mode of life becomes the rule by which we live. To me, that does not constitute seriousness. To me, the word has quite a different meaning. And I wonder what in life we take things to be serious. I think it would be very profitable and worthwhile if we could, each one of us, try to find out what it is that we take seriously. Perhaps for most of us, consciously or unconsciously, we are seeking security in some form or another. Security in property, security in relationship, and security in ideas. And these we take as being very serious. To me again, that is not seriousness. To me, the word seriousness implies a certain purification of the mind. I'm using the word mind generally, not specifically, and we shall later on go into the word and the meaning of that word. A serious mind is really constantly aware and thereby purifying itself. In which there is no security of any kind. It is not pursuing a particular fancy or belong to any particular group of thought or to any particular nationality, religion, dogma, or to any country. It is not concerned with the immediate problems of existence. The one has to take care the everyday events, but a mind that is really serious has to be extraordinarily alive, sharp, so that it has no illusion, so that it does not get caught in experiences that seem profitable, worthwhile, or pleasurable. So, it would be wise, I think, if we could, from the very beginning of this gathering, be very clear for ourselves to what extent and to what depth we are serious. And if we could, with that seriousness, a mind that is sharp, intelligent, and serious, with that mind, if we could look at the whole pattern of existence of the human being throughout the world, and from that total comprehension come to the particular, to the individual. If we could see not merely as information, but see what is taking place in the world, seeing the totality of all that, not of any particular problem, of a particular country, of any sect, or of any particular society, whether the democratic or the communist or the liberal, but see what is actually taking place in the world. And from there, after seeing the whole, come to the individual. That's what I would like this morning, if we can, grasp the significance of the outer events, not as information, not as opinion, but see the facts, actual facts of what is taking place. You know, opinion, judgment, evaluation are utterly futile in front of a fact. What you think, what opinions you have, to what religions you belong, or to what sect, or what experiences you have, they have no meaning at all in front of a fact. The fact is far more important than what you think. The fact has greater significance than your opinion or your conditioning according to your particular education or religion or country. So we are not going to deal with opinions, ideas, judgments. We are going to see facts as they are, if we can. And to see facts as they are requires a free mind. A mind that is capable of looking. I wonder if you have ever thought about seeing and looking, what it means to look, to see. Is it merely a matter of visual perception? Or is seeing, looking, something much more profound, which has nothing to do with mere visual seeing? For most of us, seeing implies seeing the immediate. What is happening today and what's going to happen tomorrow. And what is going to happen tomorrow is colored by yesterday. So our looking is very small, narrow, very close. And our capacity to look is very limited. And if we want to look, see, then there must be a certain quality of freedom to see beyond the hills, beyond the mountains, beyond the rivers and the green fields, beyond the horizons. That requires a very steady mind. And the mind is not steady when it's not free. And it is very important, it seems to me, that we should have this capacity of seeing. Seeing not what we want to see, not what is pleasurable, or according to our narrow, limited experiences, but seeing things as they are. And to see things as they are frees the mind. And it is an extraordinary thing to perceive directly, simply, totally. Now with that generality, we will go and look at all the things that are happening in the world. Probably you know much more of what is actually happening in the world, because you read newspapers, you read magazines, articles. Translated according to the prejudices of the author, according to the editors, according to the party. And the printed word becomes very important for most of us. You know what is happening very well in the world. I don't happen to read newspapers. But I've traveled a great deal. I've seen great many people. I've been into the narrow lanes, talked to big politicians, the very, very, very important people. At least they think they are important. And you know what is happening? There is starvation, misery, degradation, poverty in the East. They would do anything to have a square, full meal. And therefore they are in rebellion. They want to break down the frontiers of thought, of custom, of tradition. And you go to the other extreme, where there is immense prosperity, a prosperity that the world has never known, where food is abundant, where clothes are plentiful, houses clean, lovely to look at, comfortable. As in this country, which breeds certain satisfaction, a mediocrity. A certain quality of accepting things and not wanting to be disturbed. And the world is broken up in fragments, politically, religiously, economically, and in thought and in philosophy. So, the events in the world are fragmentary. Religions, governments are after the minds of man. They want to control them, shape them into technicians, into soldiers, into engineers, physicists, mathematicians, because then they will be useful to society. An organized religion as Catholicism or communism is spreading. You must know all this very well. Organized belief is shaping the mind of man. Whether it's the organized belief of democracy, of communism, or of Christianity, or of Islam. Do consider all this. Don't say we know all this. You are just wasting your time repeating all this. I'm not. Because I want to see first what is actually taking place. And then if it is possible to destroy all that within ourselves, totally destroy it. Because the outward movement, which we call the world, is the same tide that turns inward. The outward world is not different from the inward world. And without understanding the outward world, to turn inward has no meaning at all. To turn inward then becomes merely an escape. But if we understand the outward world, the brutality, the ruthlessness, the enormous urgency for success, belonging to something, wanting to commit oneself to a certain group of ideas, thoughts, and feelings. If we can understand all the outward events, not in detail, but grasp it totally, the seeing with that eye that is not prejudiced, that is not afraid, that is not seeking security, that is not sheltering itself behind its own favorite theories, hopes and fancies. Then when one understands these things, then naturally the inward movement has quite a different meaning. It is that inward movement which has understood the outer. That movement I call serious. Not the mind that merely escapes from the outer and builds of its own fancies, ideas, or escapes without understanding the outer into religions, into beliefs, into dogmas, into sectarian ideas. So, you see throughout the world that the mind of man is being shaped and controlled by religions in the name of God, in the name of peace, in the name of perpetual happiness, eternal life, and so on, whatever those words may mean. And also, the man's mind is being shaped by governments through everlasting propaganda, through repetition, through economic, environmental enforcement, by the jobs, by the bank account, by the education that you receive. So, at the end of it, you are merely a machine. Do think about all this. Not as good a machine as the electronic brains, the computers. You're full of information. That's what our education is. To do certain jobs. Limited, narrow. And the machines are taking all that over. So we are gradually becoming more and more mechanical. You're either a Swiss, an American, a Russian, an Englishman, or a German. You are stamped for life in a pattern. And very few escape from this horror. And when we do escape, we escape into some fanciful religion, into some fantastic beliefs. So that is the life, that is the condition, that is the environment in which we live. With an occasional hope, with a sight that is delightful, but behind it all there is fear, despair, and death. That's our life. And how is it that we meet that life? What is the mind that meets that life? Do you understand my question? Our minds are accept these things as inevitable. Our minds adjust itself to that pattern. And slowly and definitely our minds deteriorate. So, the real problem is how to shatter all this. Not in the outward world, you can't. There's the historical process going on. You can't stop Khrushchev or Kennedy from having wars. There are probably going to be wars, I hope not, but there probably will be. Not here or there, but far away somewhere else. They will see to that. It's a poor, unfortunate country. That doesn't matter. As long as West or the Middle East or the America or the Russia is not touched. We can't stop all that. But we can, I think, shatter, destroy within ourselves all the stupidities that society has built into us. And the destruction is creativeness. What is creative is always destructive. Not the creative creation of a new pattern, I don't mean that way. A new society or a new order. Or a new God or a new church. But the state of creation is destructive, is destruction. It doesn't create patterns. It doesn't create a mode of conduct, a way of life. A mind that is creative has no pattern. every moment it destroys what it has created. And it is only such a mind that can deal with the problems of the world. Not the cunning mind, not the informative mind, not the mind that thinks of its own country, not the mind that functions in fragmentation. Listen, listen. It's all right, sir. Sit down, please. All right, please. It's all right. Never.
I hope you come back again.
So, what we are concerned is with the shattering of the mind, so that out of that shattering a new thing can take place. And that is what we are going to discuss during all these gatherings, meetings. How to transform, how to bring about a revolution in the mind. There must be a revolution. There must be a total destruction of all the yesterdays. Otherwise we shan't be able to meet the new. And life is always the new. Like love. Love has no yesterday or tomorrow. It's always new. But the mind that has tasted satiety, satisfaction, stores up that love as memory. And worships it or puts it on the piano or the mantelpiece as the love. So, if you are willing, and that if that is your intention also, we will go into the question of how to transform the dull, the weary, the frightened mind, the mind that is ridden with sorrow, that has known so many struggles, so many despairs, so many pleasures that has become so old and has never known what it is to be young. If you will, we'll go into that. At least I'm going to go into it, whether you will it or not. The door is open, you are free to come and go. This is not a captive audience. So if you don't like it, it's better not to hear it. Because then what you hear, if you don't want to hear, becomes your despair, your poison. So you will know from the very beginning what is the intention of the speaker. That we are not going to leave one stone unturned. That there is no secret recesses of the mind which cannot be explored, opened up, destroyed to create something out of that destruction, not by the mind, but something totally different. To do that, you require seriousness and earnestness, a thing that can be pursued relentlessly, slowly, hesitantly. And perhaps at the end of it all, or at the very beginning of it, there is no beginning and no end in the destructive process. One may find that which is immeasurable. One may suddenly open the door of the eye, the window of the mind, that receives that which is unnameable. There is such a thing which is beyond time and space and measure. But that cannot be described, that cannot be put into words. And without discovering that, life is utterly empty, shallow, stupid, waste of time. So perhaps after having said all this morning, we can discuss a little bit. We can ask questions. Now just a minute, before you ask, before you begin to discuss, you must find out what we mean by discussion. And also we must find out what we mean by a question. You know, you can ask a wrong question. And a wrong question always receives a wrong answer. To ask a right question is extraordinarily difficult. And then only you will find the right answer. And to discover how to ask the right question. Not me alone, but to all of us. requires a penetrating mind, a mind that is astute, alert, aware to find out. So don't just ask questions about not relevant, something odd, which is probably disturbing your mind for the present. And to discuss, to discuss. Not like schoolboys, not intellectually, not you taking one side and I taking the other, which is all right in colleges, in debating societies. But to discuss in order to find out. Not whether you are right or I'm right, or I'm wrong and you're right. But to find out. Which is the really scientific mind, which is unafraid. Then such a discussion becomes worthwhile. So, if we can discuss in that way and ask questions, then we will proceed and discover for ourselves what is true and what is false. Therefore, really, the authority of the speaker ceases. Because there is no authority in discovery. It's only the dull, lazy mind that demands authority. But a mind that wants to find out, that wants to experience something totally, completely, has to discover, has to push. And I hope these meetings and the questions and the discussions will help each one of us to see for ourselves, not through somebody else's eyes, what is worthwhile, what is true and what is false. I'm afraid I've rather made it rather difficult, haven't I?
I suggest we discuss precisely the point raised as to why we find it so difficult usually to frame the correct question. What is the reason? Why is it so difficult to frame the correct question?
I understand, sir. The gentleman asks, why is it? I'll repeat it if you don't mind.
It is difficult to frame the correct question.
I
suggest discussing why we find it difficult.
That's right. First I must repeat your question, sir, because everybody doesn't hear it. The gentleman asks, why is it that we find it difficult to put a right question? Do you find it difficult to put a right question? Or you want to put a question? You see the difference? We are not concerned with putting a right question. I am putting that problem to you. You are concerned with putting a question. You are concerned with putting forward a problem which you have. So you are not concerned at all about the right question. But if you are concerned with your problem and you want to understand it, then you have to inquire what the problem is. And the very inquiry what the problem is will bring about the right question. You understand? It is not that you must ask the right question. You can't, you don't know. But you can't help asking the right question if the problem is intense, if the problem has been studied. We generally don't study the problem. We don't look at the problem. We skim on the surface of it. And then from the surface ask a question. And from the surface asking question will only bring about an answer which is superficial. That's all we want to know. If we are afraid, we say, well, how am I to get rid of fear? If you have no money, how am I to get better job? How am I to be successful? That's all. But if you begin to investigate the whole problem of success, the success that man worships, which every human being is after, then if you go into it, what it means, why this urge to be successful, and the fear of not being successful, if you go into it, which I hope we will, then in the very process of going into it, you're bound to ask the right question. Then it's not a problem at all how to ask the right question. You can't help it.
Would it be correct, sir, to suggest that the barrier between us and the right framing of the question, that's to say, going straight to fundamentals, is a certain set of vested interests we have in ideas, in things that we cherish, and mostly in habit? Is that a correct definition of the barrier between our usual habits and between fundamentals, which means the right question about fundamentals?
No, sir. You see, sir, I must repeat. The gentleman asks, or demands a definition of a fundamental issue, and to go directly to the fundamental. And in going to the fundamental, you'll ask the right question. Isn't that it, sir?
No, sir. I beg your pardon.
Bene.
I haven't explained myself clearly. It isn't with reference
Sir, would you make your question short, because I have to repeat it.
Right. I do not mean a particular issue, but just as a broad general issue as to why we find it difficult to frame the correct question about any matter. I suggest...
Just a minute, sir. The gentleman says, we find it very difficult to put a right question. Why is it? I've just explained that it is not difficult to put a right question. We do not know how to approach the problem which we have and to go into it deeply. If we can go into the problem deeply, we are bound to put the right question.
What is preventing us from going into a problem deeply?
That's a different question altogether. All right, sir. The gentleman asks, why don't we go deeply into our problems?
What is holding us?
What is holding us? A lot of things, don't we, on there? Do you really want to go very deeply into the problem of fear? One moment. Stop. Just a minute. Do you know what it means to go into a problem of fear? Which we'll discuss, we'll go into another day, not now. It means tearing every corner of our mind, shattering every shelter that the mind has taken refuge in. And do you want to do that? Expose yourselves. Don't agree with me, please. Which means giving up so many things that you hold. It may mean giving up your family, your jobs, your churches, your gods, and all the rest of it. And so very few people want to do that. So they would ask a superficial question, how to get rid of fear. And by asking such a stupid question, they think they have solved the problem. Or they ask if there is such thing as God. Just think of the stupidity of asking such a question. To find out if there is God, you must give up all gods. Surely. You must be completely naked to find out. Burnt of all the silly, stupid things that man has built up concerning God. That means to be fearless. That means to wander alone. Very few people want to do all that.
Don't you think that the moment you go into the problem, now there's no question more, the Lord knows in it and you get out.
It's very difficult to go into a problem.
Painful.
No, madam. It is not painful. You see, we are using words like painful, and therefore the very word prevents you from going into the problem. So first, to go into a problem, we must understand how the mind is a slave to words. Do please listen to this. We are slave to words. The word is Swiss. The Swiss person feels thrilled. A Christian, an Englishman. We are slaves to words, to symbols, to ideas. And how can such a mind, which is a slave to words, go into a problem? So, before it can go into a problem, it must find out what the word means first. You see, it isn't just a simple thing. It requires a mind that understands totally, that does not think in fragmentation. Look, sir, it's very simple what we're talking about. There is starvation in the world, probably not in Switzerland or in Europe, not too much. But there's starvation in the East, of which you don't know the poverty, the degradation, the horror of it. But it's not being solved because they want to solve it according to the communist regime or pattern or to the democratic pattern. Or they want to solve it according to their nationalities. They're approaching the problem in fragmentation. And therefore they'll never be solved. It can only be solved when you approach it as a problem, irrespective of nationalities and party politics and all the rest of the nonsense. Sir, just a minute. Do we want order in the world? Aren't we in a mess and chaos now? Therefore, do please think it out. Do you want order? That's what the communists offer. Order. Create mess, confusion, misery, and then out of that produce order. Order according to certain pattern of ideas. Do you want order in your life? Do think it out, sir, please. Order. You know what order means, don't you? Do you? Do you want order in your life?
Are we ready to pay its price?
No, sir, that is not the question. Do I want order in my life? I don't. I don't want order in my life.
What is it? Is something we can get for a price? What is
Oh,
the price
zit.
and are we ready for it?
No, sir, that is not the problem. You can have order and pay the price for order. Through military dictatorship, through subjugating your mind and adjusting yourself to the authority, and so on. You can have order, and you can pay the price for it. You do pay the price of order when you belong to a certain group, to a certain religious society, don't you? You have order. There is Jesus, there is somebody else in India, and Muhammad in the rest of the world, and you have that order, and you follow. And you have paid the price for centuries. Now, do you want order? Do think about it and see the implications of it. Or, in the very act of living, which is destructive, there is order. That is quite a different problem, which we'll discuss it another time. Yes, sir.
So I'm coming back to your mentioning fear. Fear is no doubt one of our biggest stumbling blocks to progress. You said if we want to get rid of fear, we have to tear down everything. I quite agree with you, but shouldn't we be able to start at a certain end and be satisfied for the moment with halfway measures instead of abandoning it because we cannot tear down everything right from the start?
The gentleman asks, has everybody heard the question? So if I repeat it wrongly, please correct me. The gentleman says, fear prevents progress. I'm repeating what he said. And is there no half measure, halfway, step by step, to destroy fear instead of tearing down everything to be free of fear? Isn't that right, sir?
I don't quite understand you now. And as you said, in order to get rid of fear, we have to tear down everything which we so far loved in our lives. This is, for ordinary people like me, too much for the beginning.
Yes, sir, I understand. He says, to tear down everything in order to be free fear is too difficult for ordinary people like us. Isn't there a gentler, more slow way of doing things? Isn't that right, sir?
Right, sir.
I'm afraid not. Sorry, I don't want to discuss that this morning for the time, because that involves the whole problem of time and space, which we shall go into if you are here for during the rest of these talks and discussions. But you see, so the word progress and fear are two different things, aren't they?
I don't mean outward progress, I mean.
Yes, sir, I understand very well. The very outward progress creates fear. The more you have, more cars, more luxuries, more bathrooms, more, the more you are afraid. And therefore there is no progress except progress in things. But if you are not concerned with progress, but are concerned with understanding of fear, then progress doesn't make the mind dull and satisfied and live in security.
I don't mean that, Paul.
I understand, sir, I'm explaining it. So you mean really that two kinds of progresses, the outer and the inner. The gentleman means the inner. Now just a minute. Is there such thing as inward progress? To me, there is no progress inwardly. There is only seeing immediately. And to see immediately, the mind must not be lazy. I know, it's very difficult, please don't agree with me. Just follow it. To see clearly, which is always in the immediate, the mind must no longer have the capacity to choose. It must cease to condemn, evaluate, to judge, to see things as they are immediately. That doesn't demand progress. That doesn't demand time. Sir, you do see things immediately without time. When you see something dangerous, I'm using the word dangerous in quotations, your response to it is immediate. There is no progress. When you love something, with all your being, there is no, the perception of that is immediate.
But to reach that possibility
Ah,
of seeing.
yes, sir. You see, the word reach implies time. The word reach implies distance. So, the mind is a slave to the word reach. So if the mind could be free itself from the word attain, reach, arrive, then the seeing will be immediate. I have been told I must stop punctually at 12. And the bells are ringing. Probably it's 12. And we better stop. And we meet again on Wednesday at I beg you, on Thursday, day after tomorrow at 11 o'clock here.